Hey, what's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and today we're doing a first look at a game called Adventureland, the code MMO RPG. The unique gimmick of this game, obviously, is that it involves coding, but not just one character, you actually get up to 4 characters that you can code at any one time. So you're going to be coding and botting your own bots while multi-boxing an entire party of these bots. It sounds ridiculous, but that being the sole focus, the sole gimmick of the game, actually you might find it a lot more engrossing than you could ever possibly imagine, and potentially even if you're totally new to programming. That is at least the questions that I have to answer, because this is a sponsored video not by the developers or the publisher of the game, but actually from one of you, the friends and family. Vasarati, the moderator of my Discord channel, gave me some money, said, hey, you want to play this game? Would you please do a first look, answer these questions for me, do a little review? I'd really appreciate it, and this way you could kind of do it more unbiasedly. Vasarati is actually fundraising for surgery, so if you guys want to go give some love to them, that would be really appreciated. This game definitely looks charming, and I would have probably covered it anyways regardless, because it's actually a free-to-play browser game as well, but you can also buy the Steam version, and after a certain amount of copies are sold, then they're just going to give it away. So, interesting enough, if you just want to jump in and play it, you have the browser, or you could buy it on Steam for like 15 bucks. So yeah, I was pretty excited to jump in, and seeing this game coming from one of the friends and family, I would be open to doing more videos like this. So if you want to sponsor directly me to play a game and do like an unbiased review kind of thing, I know it's strange, then yeah, absolutely. Or just support me via Patreon so I can play more games. That would be a lot of fun. But talking about fun, let's jump right into this one. So for the overview of Adventureland, the code MMO RPG. This is definitely indie, and it's definitely early access. In fact, when I started streaming this, when I was asked to first cover this game, the game did not have all the menus that I really needed to properly play, and that was something I lamented on stream. Yes, I stream and do my reviews episodically, but this episode is more fully cohesive. I'm glad I took a little bit longer to do this video because it is early access. They're constantly developing it. They actually saw the streams, and they heard other people's complaints, and they put in a little bit more tutorials and more information in the game, so now it's actually properly playable. So, you just, from the game, you don't have to keep going through different menus and forums and things just to begin to even start to play the game. It should be a little bit easier to jump in. Now, this is a standard point-and-click MMO with standard classes and overall a very standard design. If this wasn't a coding MMO, frankly, this would be kind of boring. Now, you can actually play manually. But the reason why you can play manually is so that you kind of get a feel of, I want to say almost like the physics of the world, and just kind of wrap your head around maybe what you need to translate what you do manually, mechanically, into code to bot your character. Yeah, so botting is actually freaking complicated. So the game, looking as simple as it is kind of a blessing in disguise. It allows you, as a newer, coder programmer, to jump into the game and learn about it. Now, I would say that this game so far immediately is probably going to become much more complex as time goes on, maybe add more classes, maybe add more monsters, and already I can see drastic changes beginning to unfold. So as long as they keep getting love and support, and maybe videos like this, I think we could see this game evolve quite well. But just know, if you jump in now, the game is deceptively simple until you actually start to do the coding. And even then, you're one character at the one starting zone. That's not the full game. You're the full game, really, like the end game where you really begin to actually start to play the real game is going to be when you have a full party of 4. You have your merchant running back and forth buying items and giving your party members potions. You got your tank, you got your healer, and you got your DPS. And I'm sure you can have some couple of different compositions, kind of. Like there's a thief in there. There's a couple of different class. Maybe you could have just like 4 tanks running around. I don't know. There's some weird stuff you could probably do if you're creative, if you're ingenious enough, but that's for you to decide or find out if you even can do that and then learn how to program that. So basically, the game ends when you have perfectly botted the game. When the game can perfectly and efficiently play itself, that's when you've won. So yeah, strangely, the very, very weird strategy MMO. There's not too many strategy MMOs, and while it does look like an action MMO or like an RPG MMO, no, it's really more of a strategy MMO because you're controlling and gearing up an entire party, and it's focused on the coding, on the programming. If you think you're just gonna jump in and just grind out some mobs, point and click, and that's gonna be the fun of it, nope, sorry, that's not the game. No, it's not. Yeah, this is a coding MMO, like, first and foremost, but there are a couple of questions about that, like what level of skill do you need to come into this game? Who is this game really for? Things like that, but do know that the overall skill ceiling for this game is pretty high, I would say. Now, in terms of the coding skill ceiling, you're not going to be as flexible, and you're not going to have such a ceiling as if you just made your own game engine or were just making your own game. Obviously, you have to work within the constraints of the game, but that's what makes it a game. So this isn't just to learn JavaScript, which is what it is written in. All the coding is JavaScript here. It's not just about just being able to brute force any sort of solution via JavaScript, copy pasting stuff from the internet. This is about being creative within the constraints of the game. So that's going to be the gameplay loop. Sometimes some solutions are going to be harder to figure out, but hopefully with the community working together, because it is an MMO, it is a social game, you should be kind of working together, talking with people, and that in itself is kind of actually how you learn how to code. At least that's my experience with my, me learning how to program, is that a lot of it seems to be ever learning. You're always taking from other people, learning from other people, and you will, like whenever you're actually making your own games, from my experience, you will be constantly shifting through different forums and different, pages of different options of codes and, examples, and then, kind of putting it together, pulling it all together and twisting it into your own. So this game is going to be kind of like that, but just a little bit more intuitive, especially with the additions of the menus that they put in game, which I'm so freaking thankful for, to mention again. And to kind of prove the skill ceiling, you have a lot of different abilities that you would kind of find in standard MMOs, such as the warrior having 2 taunts, you got the mage with like a nuke spell, a couple of nuke spells, a blink, things like that, priest having, some shielding abilities, obviously healing abilities, and you have like a really complex, I would say, kit relatively for a game that looks as simple as this is. You would think that this is baby's first coding MMO, or even baby's first MMO, but actually, when it comes to the real gameplay, managing your entire party, having them running all together, it's going to take you quite a little bit. So this is really meant for, I would have to say, somebody who knows of programming. So maybe you have played 1 or 2 other programming games before, or just understand the concepts of programming. Maybe you've messed around a little bit in Unity. Maybe you've played some other non-coding but just programming games, because those exist. Programming doesn't equal coding. But this game, you are going to need to know the basic understandings of like the syntax of coding. You don't need to know the language of JavaScript, because you can copy paste a lot basically here. But you just need to know of, the language, the syntax of coding, and you need to know of programming, and you also need to know of MMO general design or action RPG design, because you're going to need to learn and kind of fandangle around with like kiting, how to keep your mage safe. You need to program kiting, tanking, supporting the merchanting, how that's going to operate and work, how you're gonna, how are you even going to do this? How would you do it as a player? And luckily though, the game does allow you to manually control your characters, so you can kind of work it out step by step. The game does allow you to copy and paste. It has a lot of stuff, a lot of information already built in. Thank God they put that in, third time. And also, the classes are relatively archetypal. They're very simple. The gameplay is very simple. The world, it's a double-edged sword, of course, but everything is very usual and simple. So this is going to be for, I would say, the, upstart, the beginner coder, and it's a game to test and meddle with and learn from, absolutely. But is it going to be for children? Is this a kid's game? Is this for your very first, endeavor at all experience into coding? I'm gonna have to say probably not. There is just a little bit of challenge, as simple as the game can seem to be at the moment, until like there is some actual like hard tutorials, until there is something that maybe a game design flow that might better suit overall the intro experience. But that I just have never seen that outside of just maybe like a visual scripting style game, and there's really not many of those. So these coding and programming and these STEM style games are relatively new and kind of actually booming and popping. If you ever go to Target, ton of STEM builders and games and things like that. But when it comes to the coding MMO, I have to say, no, not for kids, but definitely maybe for like the high school age, maybe for the college students, the people who are just getting into coding and programming. It can be very exciting. And I know a lot of people in real life who saw me playing this game, saw me streaming it or talking about it, and they got really excited. So yeah, it looks like a silly, cute, simple game that is for kids. It's not quite there. It's not that exactly. But at least for me, for my demographic, and I think the demographic of my audience, you guys would probably want to know that this exists, which is why this video exists. But let me just quickly list out some cons for you guys, so you know the speed bumps when you get into this. Frankly, the audio is kind of miserable. Definitely had to mute that stuff. I don't know if you guys need like some extra audio sound effects or something. I would love to work on it. I wouldn't mind it. That'd be fun. And also the graphics overall are, I think in some ways are charming. I love pixel art, but it's not going to be for everyone. And I kind of feel weird about the monster design. That's really kind of it. The monster design itself is just, I don't know, maybe could use a little rework. I was just like, a lot of the monsters were just a little bit ambiguous. And I think a lot of the skills also just lack animation. Really, like a sword strike from a warrior, do you even see any animation at all? Like, you're not going to actually see like a fireball spitting out. You're not going to see an axe swinging or anything like that. And I would appreciate that. I know the game is about botting and programming, but it would help to illustrate that actions are actually happening. Sometimes I'd have to stare at the screen for like 5 seconds to make sure that my code was even working because I couldn't quite tell immediately. And it's hard to tell when monsters are attacking. Yeah, monsters attacking, like you just kind of see damage being done to you. You don't actually see any effects. So overall, like seeing what's actually happening on the screen, which is also complex because remember, you're going to have 4 screens up at the same time because you're multi-boxing when you really get into the game. It's just a little uncomfortable. So that's definitely the main con, outside of the fact that the game, it just kind of, it chugs along, and a lot of the gameplay is actually you not playing the game. It's you trying to figure out the code. But aside from those things, there really isn't too much of a cons with this. It's just like the game is kind of smaller. It's more of a light MMO that you can, bot yourself. So there's not too much to it in terms of like the raids and dungeons and things like that. In terms of an MMO gameplay, it's really more like an open sandbox that you can socialize with other people, but there's not really too much gamification with other players, though there is PvP. I haven't tested that out yet. It just kind of feels that the game is just extremely distilled of an MMO. Again, that's a double-edged sword, so that's kind of a con, but it's also a good thing if you're just learning how to program. But if you're coming in this as like a veteran, especially if you know JavaScript and you really know MMOs and how to own them, and I don't know, maybe you're a multi-boxer already and you're a botter, this game is not going to be for you, not at all. So it's a niche, hyper-focused game that has a very specific type of gameplay. It's not an MMO that really is a games as a service that you really play and live in, and there's expansions and things like that. You're going to play this MMO more like a one-and-done educational sort of experience that can be fun, that's worth the run, but for specific people. And now to be fair, I should give out some pros, but I feel like obviously like me just stating the facts of what this game is pretty pro because it's an incredibly unique game. What I can say is that it does run. Now there are some reviews that say like later on as you get like more complex coding and more complex, you have your full 4 party members running around the world and a whole lot of stuff is happening on the screen that it can actually chug. Myself, I could probably see that coming. I have had some server issues myself, and I think on the browser version you might have more detrimental issues. However, for what this game is, especially if you consider like it's an educational sort of experience, it is a game that's a more light MMO. This is something more of a one and done experience. I think that's overall passable, and I just kind of appreciate that it exists. You have to imagine that what this game is trying to do, it's indie, it's smaller, it's cuter, and they're trying to make a coding MMO. There's really like not many of those. I can only think of Screeps, which is an MMO RTS where you actually program your own like entire army. So this game being an MMORPG with the RPG, intricate mechanics that you have to like code for, all the little tiny details in that, the interactions between your party members, the PvE, and remember, there's PvP in this game. I feel that really this game, just the fact that it exists, deserves to be a pro, But I could definitely say, at least in my experience, you can watch the streams, you can see clearly, at least from the gameplay, it ran, it worked. It did a good job for the most part, and generally I enjoyed myself. I liked the selection of classes. I appreciated the couple of different monsters that they showed. There's a couple of different challenges, and of course there could always be more and more and more, but it is an early access game, and I can really only say so much. But definitely, I really can't understate how unique of a game that this is. No matter what it looks like, the actual feeling of coding and programming and the strategy of that is something that I have not ever felt. The closest was like, I don't know, planning troops in Clash of Clans, man, or, playing an RTS that's not even like an MMO. So MMO strategy games are rare, and coding MMO games, I think there's like 2 of those. So this is the other one. And you know what? I had a lot of fun. Alright, so that basically closes out the review portion, but Vassarati, for the paid promotion, asked me to answer 4 questions here that I will do now. So immediately they asked, the sponsee shall review the game to the best of the ability. Yep, well, I kind of gave it a good shot and can answer the following questions now that the review is done, which is, number one, would this game be a positive benefit to a player with no coding experience? The answer is no coding experience, likely, as long as you knew of coding, but you need programming experience. Like maybe some game, there's a couple, like Glitch Space is a free-to-play one, and there's actually a Google Doodle. If you guys want to go see my top 10 Google Doodles, I actually included the programming game on there. There's a couple of programming games that you could probably utilize. Minecraft, even if you want to talk about Redstone, as long as you know of those aspects, then you can jump into this game. But like I said earlier, not exactly meant for, I would say, children or entirely ignorant players. Second, would this game be a positive benefit to a player with coding experience? Now, if you already have coding experience, as in you have programmed, you have coded, you have made your own stuff and things, I would say it depends on what you did code, what you did program. If you're coming from like a totally separate background from the type of coding that you're going to do in this, then I would say, yeah, it'd be beneficial, but there's like so much you can code and program. Like it's like this universe is magic. Like we could do anything. So in this specific game, you do have limitations. You have to play around those limitations. So I would say, would it be a benefit? I don't know, but it could still be a challenge and it could be fun. However, if you do know JavaScript, if you do know of programming, and if you do know MMOs, if you like already know this game, it's going to be no challenge. It's overall, fundamentally, it's a very, very, very simple game. The complexity is basically in you not knowing how to code. And third, is the educational experience of the game worth the price tag, actually, of buying the game? I think that it is. It's not. Kind of like most likely not. I think you would have to be a hyper-specific person to really make the price tag worth it. I think as a free-to-play game, it is very valuable, even just as a raw experience. Even if you just jump in and you can't do anything, it's still like, it's good to see that wall that's in front of you, like, oh, I can't do this. I have no idea how to wrap my head around this. And I think that that is a valuable experience in itself. But, you know, paying money for that experience, and then if you do know if you can't run through the game, if you can't actually, you know, manage your party and things like that, actually, like, there is content here, there is stuff and things to do, but is there $15 worth? You have to realize, oh, sure, I spent hours in this game, and I did have fun, but a lot of those hours were not really playing the game, and a lot of it was stressing and trying to figure out how to even begin to play the game. So I don't know if it's a lot of work versus reward, but then again, a lot of MMOs are. But I'm just gonna have to go with a hard no. The educational experience is not worth the price tag at the moment. However, if you do want to jump on the free-to-play or support this game in some way, jumping on, playing it, and communicating with other players, trying to teach them and things, then I think that, you know, you can have fun there. And if you really want to support this idea, support games like this, support this industry, and support the players playing these games, you know, buy the game and really jump into it deep like that, that's going to be for like 0.01% of the population of MMO players even. But yeah, for most people, absolutely not. And finally, the last question is an idle MMO a viable subgenre? And a lot of you guys probably would immediately scoff at that, laugh at that, close out the video just for hearing that question. An idle MMO, I think the answer is yes. If you actually look at Black Desert Online, the first thing that a lot of people realize is that, well, the grinding, sure, the action combat, sweet, but a lot of the game is AFK. A lot of the game plays itself. And that's kind of detrimental and sad, but I don't think that's exactly what idle, like the full potential of idle could be, or what it really means. I think an idle MMO like Screeps, you know, with the programming, the building, obviously this game, I think it was fun. I had a tremendous amount of fun with it. Again, though, like I said earlier, once you learn how to bot it, and once you become efficient in the game, and once the game plays itself, that's when you're done, basically. So once the game truly becomes fully idle, then you're done with it. But if a game really wants you, like, you know, every day just AFK fish or whatever, then that's boring. But you can totally have strategy elements. And remember, guys, strategy is not the same as tactics. Tactics is going to be, you know, like where you should put your unit chests is actually mostly tactics. Strategy would be like if you could switch around and change out different pieces on the chess board. Of course, there is still strategy in chess, but whatever. I'm just saying the strategy of what party composition, how do you program it, what tactics they will end up using, and how you code that is all very unique and very interesting, and I think that is totally viable as a subgenre because we're seeing tons of programming games, period. You have strategy games, and then you actually have a whole subgenre of programming and coding strategy games. I played one where it's like robots on mobile. It was kind of fun. Anyways, so absolutely, idle MMO, could it work? Kind of, but I will say this, kind of in closing for this question, is that MMO, my definition of MMO, means massively multiplayer online in real time. So you need like hundreds of players working together. It doesn't always have to be like literally right next face to face, but like hundreds of players, actually having some sort of ripple impact, on the world. That's like Realm of the Mad God, if you want to look at like a lower budget and lighter MMO, to Guild Wars 2 with the giant freaking bosses and dragons in the open world. That is an MMO to me. So having something idle is kind of awkward because it's not like real-time interaction. Otherwise, Pokemon Go would be like a full MMO, and that's debatable. Clash of Clans would be an MMO. It's that we could discuss that overall, but is that good? Is it bad? I think the less idle, less literally idle, like the more maintenance that you can do on your units, the more impact that you can have as a player, as long as you're really actively playing, then the better. But I think technically, yeah, idle MMO could really work. Just give us incentivization to actively be adding on new lines of code, actively give us new reasons to change around our players' behavior, maybe shuffle around the map, maybe shuffle around different monsters, change around their abilities, give us reasons to constantly maintain or, maintenance our idle characters. Then, yeah, absolutely, that would be great. And give us a lot of player interactivity and create the game around that. The best example would be a PvE VP game. So a game about grinding that's also, open world PvP. That way you have to have a really robust and ridiculous code for the end game that you're always ever changing, especially based on the meta, on the expansions, on, the shuffling of the world, the updates, things like that. That'd be fantastic. So idle MMO, can it work? Yes. Is it right now a viable subgenre to actually make a lucrative MMO and for generally most people to come in and enjoy? No. And if you're talking about literally idle MMO, like what people might call a lot of mobile games, they call them MMOs and they're literally idle, like they actually promote themselves on Facebook as being AFK. No. But what I can say is stuff like RuneScape, stuff like BDO, especially with its empire management, with like the worker nodes and things like that, I think we're starting to see the potential for a really fucking good strategy MMO. At least strategy party builder, strategy RPG of some kind that's online could be really sick. So yeah, I'm just gonna say yeah. All right, friends, so to end cap the video, I'm just going to tell you my overall experience so you can hear my words, what I just said, and then have a little bit of a reference point with that. So the anchor here is that I did not play PvP and I coded 4 characters. I coded a warrior tank, I coded a merchant, I coded a priest healer, and I coded a DPS mage. I first started with the mage, and essentially, like, there's already an auto attack script. So I just had that going. That's all you need for the mage. And then I also added kiting. That was pretty much it. One line or less, and and that's it. Next, I actually coded a priest because my mage kept getting caught on things, and some monsters I would go to a little bit higher level, and they would start, chunking me for health, and I would even die. So I needed some healing. I didn't quite need a tank at the moment, so I was like, healing. We need to be able to follow, and we need to be able to heal. So I was actually able to take, a lot of the movement code and stuff, and kind of just plug it in so that it was like, instead of go to nearest monster, basically, move in the direction of my mage, and then whenever, he's hurt, whenever he's damaged, throw out a heal. That's pretty much it. Then I coded for a merchant because priest, healing, and mage casting spells and things, you're gonna run out of mana, right? We need some mana. So we need some potions, healing potions, mana potions. So I need a merchant that can actually go back and forth from my heroes and then also to the stalls to buy the potions. But then I also had to code my mage to give my merchant money. So I had to go back to the mage and code that in. So now as we're grinding, we're getting money. Mage gives money to the merchant. Merchant takes the money to the stall and then dishes it out. Gets the potions, brings back the potions to the mage, and then there we go. It was a little bit weird to have it set to like find where the stall was. I had to actually code that specifically. Go to this location, go to, find this NPC, do it, and then also go back and find my mage. So, but other than that, it was pretty straightforward. None of these, actual coding or programming was too ridiculous, too strange, and already it's starting to take form a proper party, I would say. But, Yeah, we were missing one thing. The game actually, as I was, recording this video and playing it and streaming it, they made some updates, and they made it so where some monsters were a little bit more challenging. So I couldn't just kite, I couldn't just have, my priest hanging out, my merchant coming around. Sometimes they would die. Them running around dilly-dally back there, they get aggroed and died. So I'm gonna need a knight. So that was the last thing that I did. And this time, instead of having a stream helping me out or anybody copy and pasting too much, I actually, I used the in-game resources, and that's why, like, what is this, the 5th time? I have to applaud that they finally put that in the game. Always. There's so many MMOs, RPGs generally, and it's just so many strategy games where it's like, you gotta go to the Wikipedia pages, you gotta have the forums open, and with a coding game especially, like, there's just, it just breaks the flow of gameplay so much, so it's good that that is at least now inside of the game. And so basically, now my knight just kind of sticks around my party, it kind of huddles around, and whenever a monster is being attacked, he just makes sure that he taunts everything. So go attack the monster, use the taunts, I just have it spammed right now, and that's just how it works. So yeah, my party, it's not perfect. The strafing should probably not just run backwards, it should probably run in circles. The priest should be using all of his different abilities, mage should also. There's so much more that I could do with all these individual classes, and also, should they just be mindlessly grinding? Maybe there's more that they could be doing. Maybe there could be more smartness to them. Like I could actually program the AI to move from zone to zone, maybe do certain things, accrue very specific items and sell them back or give them to my merchant, and then my merchant itself could go and go to different stalls and not just run to the potion stall. So there's so much more that I could do with my whole party and even individual characters. My mage, I could outfit all of his abilities and have him just a brilliant spellcaster that just is so efficient at wiping down entire swaths of enemies. There's just a lot of hours of fun gameplay ahead of me, but I also know that there's a lot of hours of work, of tedium, and just a lot of downtime, I would say, versus actually playing the game. So that's a little bit awkward for me, I have to say. I think it would be faster with visual scripting. I think it would be faster if the game more readily forced me to actually learn it. In a sense, a lot of the monsters are very easy. A lot of the zone, it's basically like, can you do the content or can you not do the content? There isn't like a slow curve of difficulty. And so I think that overall, I enjoyed the game and I will play it every once in a while, but unlike most MMOs that you live in and games as a service, this game is not quite designed like that. So I think it's actually totally fine. It's just something that you need to be aware of it. That myself, I had fun in short bursts, do one line of code here, do one line of code there, one character, one idea, one concept, one mechanic. Throw that in there and have fun with it. I think you guys can have fun with that too, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea of my mentality and the gameplay flow and loop that you're probably going to be experiencing yourselves as new players inside of Adventureland, the coding MMO RPG. Hope you guys had fun with the video, and hopefully you guys have fun with the game if you do jump in. You can actually go to adventure.land and be playing right now today, just to give it a little bit of a shot. And remember, this was sponsored actually by a community member, Vasarati, who is fundraising for surgery and also just trying to get up that social media. They stream, they have fun, they're cool and stuff, obviously, but sponsored. But they aren't affiliated, they're not a developer, they're not the publisher, they aren't, this is a more or less unbiased review of the game and just trying to show off what it has to offer, which, again, not for everybody, but I am so glad that this game does exist, and hopefully it heralds, an awesome future for games like this, and maybe we'll see what this game has to offer in the very near future. Hopefully you guys are there too. So keep the hype alive. My name's Skylent, and I'll see you again next time.